chamomile tea. Tell me, did you ever sit in a bar and you're just having a couple of beers? And as you're sitting there, you realize there is this beautiful sunset, like this one, just right next to you. But because you're enjoying yourself, you're not taking out the tripod and trying to take a proper picture. Instead, you just place the camera on the very table right next to your beer and you just shoot and ask questions later. When I came home and looked at that image, I thought, well, that didn't turn out very well, did it? But I did notice some colorful spots in the sky, and I thought, well, let's see what we can really bring out of that photo. So today we're going to use Aurora HDR, which is my most favorite HDR software, to create a pseudo HDR, meaning we're only going to use one image. And we're going to use it to really rescue that bar image, bring out the colors, and turn it into at least a pretty decent evening image. Let's jump right in.
Okay, here's my original image, so let's drop that into Aurora HDR. Once we are here, simply click on Open Image and load in your photo or photos if you have. Once done, hit Create HDR and hang on for a second. And here we are. So without doing anything, just with the tone mapping procedure, you can already see a big before and after difference, which I love. Now of course we're gonna bring it a bit further. First, let's start with cropping by hitting the little crop button right here. Let's unlock the aspect, otherwise it's always cropping in a weird way, and I never like that. And then just go on the top as well as the bottom and bring it in ever so slightly. Once done, hit the done button. Cool, let's start to work with the actual, colors here. So the sun is gone, right? But the image has a bit of a green and, well, rather desaturated look to it. I don't like that. I want to make it really pop. And as the sun is mostly gone, I'm just gonna start with temperature slider on the right here and turn that towards the blue, just a little bit. Once done, let's get to the tint and turn that towards the right, just to bring out these purple magentas a little bit more, which already makes a huge difference looking at the before and after. Let's bring the contrast up just a little bit, ever so slightly, and then also the smart tone. If we wanted to, we could turn the smart tone all the way up to even see a little bit of the trees and that island there. But in the end, I decided not to do that because I actually like this dark silhouette feeling the image has as it is. So moving on, let's bring the highlights down a little bit. Let's bring the shadows up a little bit, just like that. Bring the whites up a little bit to something like maybe that, and then bring the blacks down. Sweet. So far we have this as a before and this as an after, which is already, well, I'd like to say a huge difference. Moving on. Going a little bit further down to the color section, we can now work on the color contrast. So let's increase the color contrast. You'll see that the blue goes crazy everywhere, right? But that's okay. We can obviously fix that in just a second. So for now, I'm just gonna go and increase this ever so slightly, maybe to something like that. Within the HDR Enhanced section, we can add HDR Clarity as well as Smart Structure. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. Today we're gonna add a little bit of HDR Clarity because I do like what it does to the water as well as the clouds in that sky. So I'm gonna add something like that and maybe even a little bit of Smart Structure. Nah, that may be a little bit over the top, we don't need that much. Let's leave it where it is. Going down to the HDR denoise, I always add a little bit, and then moving down to the HSL layer, here we can start to correct a little bit of that blue, which is rather dominant right now. So what I'll do here under the saturation category, I'm just simply going to bring the blues down a little bit. Not as much as you might think at this point, because we're going to do something different in just a moment, but just to cool the image down a little bit from all that blue. And last but not least, we're going to add a little bit of a vignette. So simply drag that vignette slider towards the left and create a vignette. Even though the blues are getting darker again, I know, but create a vignette that you like and that feels good to you. I'm gonna go with something like that. Now we can increase the inner brightness a little bit, but not too much. Let's go maybe with something like that. Sweet. Once we have that, let's create a new layer by hitting the new layer symbol on the top right here and click on Add New Adjustment Layer. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go straight down to the blues within the HSL section and bring the blues down. And right now I'm only looking at the corners of my photo where the blue was really intense. Cool, once I have that, I'm going to click on the little brush symbol right here and select Radial Mask. I'm then going to start to paint in a mask that has a decent size, maybe something like that, and position it nice and neatly in more or less the center of the image. It's not crazy important, but once we are done, it's done. And now if I switch it on and off, we can see that the blue in the very corners has become obviously way less because we have added simply a bit of, desaturation for the blues. Now, similarly, if we wanted to, we can now right click on the layer, simply say duplicate layer, and then click on the mask and simply say copy that mask and paste it right here. and then right click and invert that mask. So what we have now is we can go down to our HSL again, turn the blues back on, because now we are only working on the very center of our image. So if you wanted to, we can make the oranges more prominent or take the heat out, whatever you prefer. Or you can simply overall increase the saturation or vibrance or color contrast in the very center of your image if you think you don't have enough. Now careful, of course, that can quickly look quite weird. So I think in our case, maybe just a tiny touch of color contrast might already be more than enough here. And now that I'm looking at it, let's go and create one last layer, go down to vignette straight away and simply create a bit more of a vignette. I really want these dark outsides or outlines of my image right there. Now we can of course further increase the size or whatever we need to do, but I really want it slightly harsh, maybe even just to really draw the eye of the beholder to the orange in the back there. Now because we have more blue and simply more dark on the right hand side of the photo, it's going to be a bit more intense. So let's try to only paint it where we want it. Let's take a brush, get a nice large brush and maybe bring down the opacity to something like, I don't know, 20% or so. And now we can start to paint in that additional vignette that we had created simply by brushing over the areas where we want it. So I really feel like this side here could benefit from a bit of a darker outline. On the right hand side, it's already not too bad. So I'm just going to paint that in here just like so. And once we have done that, we can then adjust our vignette in accordance to how dark we really want it. And I think something like that might simply do the trick. Cool, once we have that, hit done on that brush. And the very last thing I would like to do is to make that water a little bit softer. So simply create another layer. I know I said the last one, but why not more? Hit the little brush symbol and click on gradient mask. With that, draw a gradient to richly separate the land mass from anything else. And hit done once you're done with that. Now we're gonna go scrolling down to, where is it? The image radiance right here. I'm gonna turn that slider slightly towards the right, and as I do, you'll find out that the water is becoming way softer than it was before, right? So this is before I do anything, and this would be obviously over the top. So we're gonna find something that feels nice and smooth. Notice how it also creates a dark circle, because obviously there's more light in the middle. So we're gonna turn maybe to something like that. Well, sweet. Let's have a look at the complete before and the after. And again, the before and the after. Or if we want to do it with a little before and after slider, we can definitely see a big difference. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to add that to my portfolio, but at least it is now good enough, even though I was just, being in the bar, that I can at least save that photo and remember. Also note, for video purposes, I have left the colors quite strong. If I would normally edit, I would probably bring them down a bit. For instance, that orange in the back here, but at least that way you see what's there and what you can work with.
And there we go. With a couple of easy steps, we really can bring out the color and even rescue something that was, not very good at the very beginning. It doesn't always have to be a masterpiece, but at least now we don't have to throw it away. Awesome. If you did like the video, do not forget to hit the thumbs up button. Also, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, as it's going to help me out a lot. Other than that, now you know what to do next time you're sitting in a pub, you have a beautiful scenery. Take the picture first and ask questions later. Have a good one. Bye!